package.
The White House is still eager to get a deal with Democrats on a new coronavirus relief bill. The president's weekend executive actions putting more pressure on the Democratic leadership to cave on what the White House says are unreasonable demands.
We are willing to sit down as long as it's a serious negotiation. Thus far, it has not been serious. Democratic numbers are way too high.
Democrats criticize the White House proposals as anemic, not enough to help people, and insist if there is going to be a deal, the White House has to meet them halfway.
Fox's John Roberts at the White House. The U.S. has circulated a revised resolution to extend a UN arms embargo on Iran indefinitely. That revised draft could be put to a vote by the UN Security Council as early as Friday. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont, or call 646-1463.
Woo-wee! Just take a gander at them tender and juicy fall-off-the-bone St. Louis ribs. Heavens to Betsy! What is their secret? It's bursting with so much flavor, I can eat them all day long. Come see for yourself, y'all. These fine slabs of hunky-dory, mouth-watering ribs are only available at Circle K. Circle K. Take it easy.
Hofity, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 66 years. Tall Tales is also brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Second Amendment, United States Constitution, part and parcel of Tall Tales on a daily basis, leading one to believe that this program is oriented towards the Bill of Rights and the United States Constitution, a finding that would be completely correct. That's the name of the game here on Tall Tales. Lots of local politics, a little bit of national politics. I take apart the editorials of the two daily newspapers, and I have a card. And ordinarily, I would go straight from the Second Amendment into that portion of the program called Zemi Ikotni. However, I'm not going to today because we're having a little bit of trouble with our telephone system. So I won't be able to operate it the way I usually do. I'm going to have to do some extra communication with the real Joe Cruz. I don't know what's wrong with our telephone system. Right now, I'm more interested to find out who I can blame it on rather than how to fix it. That's kind of how we do things on Tall Tales here, right, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
So I thought maybe I'd blame the problems that we're having with the phone system on the Russians or maybe the Democrats. But then, is there a difference? And then the real Joe Cruz suggested to me it might be Kamala Harris. And I don't know if you heard it. I don't know if you've heard the news today, but Kamala Harris has chosen Joe Biden as her running mate. Or did I get it backwards?
Yeah.
Well, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, as the old saying goes. But, you know, there is some intel floating around as to how Joe Biden made the choice, how he chose Kamala Harris over all of the other. He said he was going to choose a woman, so that narrowed it down somewhat. But I understand that the makers of shampoo products are doing some really intense spying on the Biden campaign because they want to find out what kind of shampoo Kamala Harris uses, because Biden obviously chose her because she's the one that smells the best. I think.
Very highly possible, sir.
Very possible. So today I'm going to start out without going to Zemi Cotney. I'm going to talk to Anthony, who is apparently on quarantine. Put him on, Real Joe Cruz.
Hello, Bob, are you there?
Big as life, twice as ugly, Anthony.
Okay, Bob, can I take my mask off while I talk to you?
Yeah, I'll keep a little bit away from. I'll put some extra filters in my headset here so that none of the germs will come over the air.
Thank you. Well, I just want to tell you about my story. I came in from the mainland recently, and I haven't been keeping abreast of all that's going on. Anyway, I got to the airport. On my way in, they formed these lines. You know, I know there's quarantine going on in some way or form, but everything I had heard, there's no residents anywhere being quarantined. And I still looked that up, and I find that there is no residents in the United States that are being quarantined forcefully. I mean, you know, government quarantines in hotels like they're doing to us here. Okay? The only one that's done it is Hawaii, and they got sued, and they no longer do it. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, you can look it up. You can look it up right now. The person that sued was Holly Carmichael. She sued the governor, David Icke, and won the case. Okay? They no longer quarantine residents in Hawaii. Now, I'm not talking about non-residents. So let me tell you my story. I can just live it.
Sure.
Now, I'm no longer in quarantine. However, I flew in. I came from the mainland. When I got in there forming up lines about, you know, COVID, I get that. We're all doing what we can. And they give you a form to sign, and it says voluntary quarantine. I want to stress the word voluntary. So I read down, and there's a space to put where you're going to be quarantined. So I wasn't going to sign something I don't want to sign. So I put my home address. I'm a resident here. I have been for a long time. I wrote my place of residence, and I agreed to quarantine there. Well, they scratched out, after I signed it, they scratched out, and I have a picture of it, they scratched out my residence, and they wrote Wyndham Hotel. And I did not want to go. I disagreed. I forcefully tried to disagree, and it was becoming physical, you know, where I'm going to get, you know. So I boarded the bus, and I went down with the other, you know, prisoners. We went down to Wyndham. And then what I did was I thought, you know, let's resist a little. It's not legal. It just cannot be legal. We can quarantine at home, and it says voluntary. And I did not sign I would voluntarily go to this hotel. So there was probably 20 people inside that were spacing us out. I walked in there, and I said, hey, everybody, this is unconstitutional. You do not have to do this. If anyone will come outside with me and just disagree, just respectfully, peacefully disagree. Not one. I'm sorry, people. Not one of you. I'm so disappointed. So I refused to go in. Now, they're watching me like a hawk and basically walking around to block my exit. And I don't want to, these people are serving. I'm a veteran, okay? They were standing guard to keep me from, say, running. Well, a police car comes up rather quickly. You know, I won't say she skidded the tires, but, you know, they probably thought they had a hostile incident. And the police officer came up, and she was a woman, and again, I said, ma'am, I do not volunteer myself to be locked up in a hotel room. I will quarantine at home. And she said, sir, if you do not go in there, my orders are to arrest you and you'll go to jail. So I had a choice. I'm not going to fight the police officer and go to jail. I'm quarantined there too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was voluntarily quarantined in there. Now I'm out, and I don't want to talk about all that, but I got out, and my quarantine is over at home, and I was tested, and I was negative. But it was illegal. In fact, if anyone out there, if we can do a class action lawsuit, they won in Hawaii, will likely win here. It's not legal. Do you think it's constitutional? I doubt it.
Is there anything more you want to tell me before I weigh in?
A little bit. Again, I'm also very concerned because my wife's going to be coming. I'm going to have her take the PCR test if she can get it. But I'm concerned about her coming in. I just will not have her quarantined. We're perfectly capable of quarantining at home. And there's something else I want to tell you. The people that I probably was there with that night that just volunteered to walk in there, something about the food they serve you on the chairs out there, I was actually getting nauseous because, people leave them on the chairs. They bring 3 meals a day, a lot more than most people could probably eat. It's not yummy, and it just starts to stink in there. So the food, I kept just putting the food out. It stunk. And it was making me nauseous, the smell. And it was in the Wyndham, and it was just horrible. And here I am in this little room thinking I'm going to be here for 2 weeks. I was just really, really, really unhappy, very upset. I blame the governor. I blame you, governor. I blame you. How dare you? How dare you say voluntary? That is not effing voluntary, governor. Anyway, I think I made my point. And again, I'm hoping some lawyers would take up that we could possibly call, announce themselves on air, join up with some other freedom-loving American Chamorros and Guamanians and start a lawsuit. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. So where do you want me to start, Anthony?
Well, I'll just listen to you, so I don't want to take anyone else's time, but I'm sure other people have had my similar experiences.
It's been a while since I looked at the books, but we had somebody a couple of weeks ago. What was his name, Real Joe Cruz? You remember the guy?
Which one? Murphy?
Yeah, Murphy.
Matt Murphy.
Matt Murphy, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Matt Murphy.
Urban legend.
Yeah, a legend in his own time. So okay. I cruised through the books at that time. And this is what I found out, Anthony, that the governor has the ability to quarantine people in the process of preventing disease.
Yes, okay.
And it's a power that's granted by statute, and one who disobeys the quarantine orders commits a misdemeanor.
Okay.
Now, ordinarily, one who commits a misdemeanor is not subject to arrest unless he commits the misdemeanor in the presence of a police officer. So if a police officer knows that you're subject to quarantine and he sees you not in a quarantine building, a place where quarantined folks are supposed to be, then he actually can arrest.
Okay.
And
I have something to add. Okay. I want to say something.
Well, fine. Me too. Now, you want me to tell you, or do you want to say something? Let me finish, okay? All right. So a person would be subject to arrest. If a person is subject to arrest, the police officer has the ability to confine him until he is taken before a magistrate. Not arrest him and take him to quarantine, but take him to the lockup until he's taken before a magistrate. The magistrate then would determine the conditions of release, which probably would be to go back to quarantine.
Yes.
There is probably, on the facts as I've laid them out, probably is constitutional. The constitutional law goes back to 1905.
Okay.
And it arises under something called the police powers, which is sort of the inherent powers of a state to deal with things like vice, criminality, etc.
Okay.
The fact that the paper said voluntary, I think, is a matter of really poor policy on the part of the governor.
That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, well, do you want to let me finish, or do you?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's poor policy, but had you not signed anything, it would not have changed anything. You would have still been subject to quarantine. So someone is not paying attention, both with the way the form was drafted and then asking people to sign something that doesn't reflect the actual powers of the officer who can assign you to quarantine.
Yes, sir. So I just want to say that's what made me so angry. And it's just, again, human nature, isn't it? To sign something that you know is in direct opposition to what you're signing, right?
And that's a matter of poor policy, but I don't think it changes the legal complexion of things. It's just a really poor implementation of an important policy.
Yeah, they could change that. They really should, because that's what really sets me off. And if it had said just mandatory, a very simple change of words, it would have been a lot easier to swallow.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, if the form should say pursuant to 10 GCA chapter blah blah blah, people arriving on Guam are subject pursuant to executive order blah 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 to quarantine under the following circumstances. You meet these criteria, therefore you are going to have to spend the next 14 days in a quarantine facility. Your buddy Lou Leon Guerrero.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to congratulate the governor, because she's the only one that's quarantined that I can find on the internet. The only state residence that's quarantining residents is Guam, because I can't find it anywhere else. So she might get a prize for that. I don't know.
Well, she's already tested positive for the virus. She's already stricken with the virus. So I'm not one who believes in karma, but if I were, that might be the answer, Anthony.
I hope she recovers, and I'm not happy that she got it. I wish no one had it, but hope she recovers, and again, would rethink some policies and start looking at the real data and not watching CNN. That's all.
She should at least watch Fox News.
Yeah, that's half right.
Yeah.
Agreed. Hey, thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate you, and God bless, and thank you all for doing what you do.
Okay, Anthony, nice talking to you. Now, speak of, I can't say speak of the devil. I don't use a net. We don't have a devil's advocate here or whatever. But mention Matt Murphy's name, and guess whose name shows up right here on my Stack VIP? Matt Murphy. Let's talk with Matt Murphy, Real Joe Cruz.
Oh, hey, Bob.
Sir.
And, the Real Joe. Hey, I just kind of had a PTSD moment, when I heard, I think Anthony or Tony just call in.
Yeah.
And going through the same exact thing that I went through. So I'd appreciate if the Real Joe Cruz or the Real Bob Klitzkie can share my number with him, and we can compare notes with a couple people I've stayed in contact here that had gone through the same dramatic incarceration experience.
Well, I'll tell you what, Matt. I will invite Anthony to call the Real Joe Cruz right now and authorize the Real Joe Cruz to give you his phone number, okay?
That would be fantastic, Bob. And, I want to put on a lighter side, it's been like 3 weeks since my experience, and I've kind of come back down to earth a little bit, not so, I don't know, pent up, but I still kind of am. And, I wish the governor well and all, too. Nobody wants to get stricken with this thing, and luckily I hadn't. I've been healthy my whole life, and I think what she the governor has done wrong, and the attorney general, they've all got to be in cahoots in the legislature, for Christ's sakes. Where's the checks and balances? If, like what Tony just shared with us, there's no state in the union that's doing this, and I could vouch for that because I went to 7 of them while I was there. Mid-March and April, was there for my birthday and my daughter's birthday, and came back from Georgia and Florida and went through 7 different airports domestically, and they took my temperature and said, "You had any symptoms? Have you been exposed?" No, no, no. "Enjoy your trip, Mr. Murphy." They would check my ID, and on I went until I got here. You were marching to a different drummer. So anyway, it is unjust, and I'm willing to do some things along the lines of what Anthony was talking about. So I had thought that they had changed the rules since I had been there, but apparently not. I thought things got better, and that's all I really wanted, was things to get better for the people, and people coming to visit their sick relatives, which there was one there, and luckily somehow she got out 2 hours before her mother died after being incarcerated. It was only because of another third party. That's a whole other story I could share with later. But there's stories like you wouldn't believe of people and what they've been through there. And Tony's absolutely right. Nobody wants to buck the system. Nobody wants to fight the government because it's usually a losing proposition.
So aren't you thankful?
Americans are so stupid that they could, the 3 blind mice, led by a bunch of blind sheep. I'm an obedient American now. I wear my mask wherever I go. I always have. I'm good. Law-abiding, tax-paying, but dang it, don't lock me up for being a healthy, fit person. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'll leave it up to Frenchie and all the good guys coming in on your program. I like your afternoon program. So you guys take it easy.
Okay, man. Nice talking to you again.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. So a couple of early callers. This is how conspiracies start. Maybe better not to announce live on air. Just looking out. Just, what does he say? I got a post here. Just looking out, man. That's from James Howard. And James Howard can call him, remember?
That's my man there.
Yeah, you remember there was a guy named R. Carl?
Yeah.
Remember R. Carl?
Yeah, of course. The most dangerous man in the room.
Yeah, that's R. Carl. And he was spotted by James Howard.
Yep.
And identified as the most dangerous man in the room. Okay, well, if no one minds, I think I will go to Jemmy Ekotny now. And as usual, the Daily News is running something from the USA Today editorial board, and it's titled Wuhan Virus Tackles College Football. Amid Wuhan virus, Big Ten pulling the plug on fall season shows college football taking the responsible play. It's a win for student athletes. Now, this goes exactly against the sermon that I read yesterday from Tom Woods. Tom Woods said nobody's standing up except the football players. And now they've caved in, too. The Daily News says college football is a mind-bogglingly commercial enterprise for everyone, that is, but the people who actually play it. That's why many players and now the Big Ten university presidents are throwing flags on a fall season. I guess somebody must have been offside, Real Joe Cruz. The The financial incentives are just the opposite, paralleled by a deluge of ads. An average game now runs to a stupefying 3 hours, 34 minutes, 16 minutes longer than an NFL game, and 23 minutes longer than what college games lasted in the mid-1990s. Ads, moreover, are omnipresent in stadiums in the names of football games. So I used to remember all of the signs that a referee had, you know, like this one that looks like a windmill, Real Joe Cruz.
Yes.
Yeah, that was offsides.
Yes.
Right? And 2 hands over your head had nothing to do with Black Lives Matter and that city in Missouri, right?
Yeah.
It meant time out, right?
Yeah.
Or it meant good if the field kick was good, right?
Yeah.
But I don't recognize the signs the referees use now, which means short commercial break, long commercial break. So they don't pay much attention anymore to things like offsides or pass interference. It's more about commercial breaks. For decades, this uniquely American system of student athletes working for tuition, room, and board while others cashed in worked fine. But as the money has risen to astronomical heights, college football has begun to look less amateur than exploitive. The Wuhan virus has only reaffirmed that. Tellingly, the opt-outs in professional sports have been pretty few, with the biggest percentage coming in women's leagues that don't pay much. Colleges, of course, know this. They know that they have players in a bind, which makes for a potentially troubling situation. More and more of the big conferences are acknowledging this reality and taking the responsible route. Well, I'm just going to spend a minute here talking about amateurism. You know, and we have spoiled that for really bad reasons. It used to be that someone who played college football didn't get paid. He maybe got a scholarship, but that was it. Got an education, etc. And if he were good enough, maybe he wound up with a pro team. But now we do silly things. We send professional athletes to the Olympics. And the line between professionalism and amateurism is gone. So I've kind of just turned my back on the whole thing, especially baseball and basketball. The people that run baseball, in order to make it more entertaining, have ruined the game. I'm just going to go off on a tangent here. A designated hitter takes one of the most important strategic decisions out of the game, because it works like this. Later innings, you have the starting pitcher maybe in the 6th inning. Starting pitcher is still a good pitcher. He could probably go the rest of the distance. But we've got a couple men on base, and we really need a hit. So the manager has to decide, does he leave that really good pitcher in and perhaps not get the hit? Or take the pitcher out and send in a pinch hitter? And then that gets into all kinds of other things. What has he got in the bullpen for relief pitchers, etc.? It makes baseball a really thinking game. But when you have a designated hitter, you don't have to think about anything. That's one. And then two, this emphasis on home runs. You know, baseball is not about home runs. It didn't once upon a time. It was about strategy, stealing bases, bunts, sacrifice flies, things like that. Not the way it is now. Instead of going through the rigmarole of the game, they could just put a batting cage on the field and let every batter stand up and take 5 swings and see who hit the most home runs, and that would be the winner of the game. Basketball, the same thing. Basketball used to be about teamwork, working the ball in, trying to get the layup, etc., until the three-point shot came along. And that turned basketball, it turned basketball into something that could easily be replaced by a game of horse. End of rant. End of off-the-subject rant. Short break, and we'll come back to the Post editorial.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer staycation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,900 by calling Family Finance. Agana 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo at 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties, doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, so let's pick up with Zemi Ikotny. I've already finished the daily news, and it caused me just to go off on baseball, especially professional baseball and professional basketball. Now we're back to the Post. And we've got some interesting things here raised by the Post editorial. The Post editorial... There's a $213 million reason why GovGuam should share cost of additional jobless benefit payments. Most everyone knows by now that President Donald Trump has ordered the federal government to pay for an additional $400 in weekly unemployment benefits for each U.S. worker whose unemployment was caused by the Wuhan virus pandemic. For Guam workers to get this $400 in additional weekly unemployment benefit, the government of Guam must do its part, including 1, applying for federal funds, 2, committing to pay 25% of the cost. That's $100 for every $400 in weekly benefit for each job-displaced Guamanian. With more than 35,000 Guam workers who have filed for jobless benefits, this new unemployment benefit, possibly made available across the nation for the next 20 weeks, adds up to nearly $213 million infusion into the Guam economy based on the federal dollars alone. Guam's share for the 20 weeks would add up to as much as $71 million. Given that Guam's tourist industry remains at a near standstill and the rest of this will continue to be challenging for the visitor industry in light of the new spike in Wuhan cases in China, as you were Japan, and on island as well, GovGuam must make the wise move of allocating $71 million from its purse for the Jobless Benefit Program funding match. GovGuam still has some federal CARES Act funding left, possibly tens of millions of dollars based on the recent GovGuam disclosure. That amount should be used to match the federal money for the new unemployment benefits. This is the time for GovGuam to expand its generosity from within the GovGuam workforce to the tens of thousands of private sector workers who have been displaced by this pandemic for more than 5 months now, through no fault of their own. Senators are in budget discussions this week. We'll see who will stand up first to propose an amendment in the proposed fiscal 2021 budget to make this happen. Now, there's a report in today's paper on yesterday's legislative session, and it's titled Deficit Reduction Discussed in Session. Lawmakers began their morning with a bit of a surprise on Tuesday. A few hours prior to the start of the legislative session, Adelup issued a press release announcing that the general fund cumulative deficit had been drawn down by $35.6 million in fiscal 2019, cutting the previous $83 million deficit nearly in half. One of the issues brought up is there's been a surplus paid down. I know it's in the mind of all our colleagues and the people of Guam. So that's where they are. The governor's office claims they're $35.6 million ahead. Now, there's another story that ran on PNC last night. Now, you would assume that when the governor was interviewed for the PNC story, she knew about the surplus. And this is what she said. Gov Guam doesn't have 25% cost share for Trump unemployment plan. As lawmakers across the country mull over how they'll implement President Trump's weekend executive orders, what's clear is participation in the unemployment program won't be clear-cut. Governors and states have to opt in and apply for a $400 a week payments, and they're on the hook to compensate 25% of it. In an interview on K57 this morning, Governor Leon Guerrero said that would be a significant amount of money for Guam, and we simply don't have the funds. Quote, we're thinking it'll be close to 30 to 50 million, and we don't have that in the general fund nor in the CARES fund. So the other story says that she sent out a press release saying that there is a surplus of $35 million. So she says that's going to be difficult, and the governors are really stepping up, I guess, opposing that for their state budget concerns. Despite Congressman Mike San Nicolas saying Guam can use federal CARES Act money allocation to fund its cost share portion, the governor says that $117 million is already earmarked. Yeah, you know what an earmark is, Real Joe Cruz?
Set aside, sir?
Planned on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably thought it was one of those snazzy tattoos that some of the young girls are wearing nowadays, right? An earmark. Yeah, it just means, well, we're going to spend this on that. So earmarked. Okay, I've got Ken LG on the line. I'm going to spend just a minute more with this, Ken, and then I'm going to come back to you. So I got a couple of things to say here. I'm a card-carrying deficit hawk. But even as a card-carrying deficit hawk, might not this be the time for the governor to trot out her well-worn copy of the works of John Maynard Keynes and engage in some Keynesian economics? That when you're in a situation like this, in an economic downturn, it might not be the best time to concentrate on deficit reduction. And then the second thing I'm going to trot out is this. The legislature's in session right now. They're playing with the budget. They know they've got some idea of how much revenue they have to spend. The governor has told us more than once, you know, we're all in this together. and senators, we're all in this together. Oh, excuse me, I can't talk about being all in this together. We got a bill on the floor to pay some GovGuam workers double pay. Remember that? So, you know, we had a bunch of senators tripping over each other to give government of Guam workers double pay. We got 35,000 people out of work. We've got a surplus of $35 million. We could put $400 in the pockets of these unemployed folks. So here is my modest suggestion. Take whatever money you can scrape together, and if it's not enough, take it out of the government of Guam personnel budget. And if by doing that, it means that some people will take a reduced work week and therefore a smaller paycheck, this would allow the governor and legislature to really mean it when they say we're all in this together. But what the governor's really saying is, no, we can't spend that money for these people. They don't work for the government of Guam. They're not really mine. And if we did, we might not have enough to continue on fumbling along the way we've been doing it. Okay, let me see what Ken LG, the other Governor Leon Guerrero, has to say, Real Joe Cruz.
Thank you. Yeah, we're definitely seeing the true colors of the governor coming through on this one right here. I listened to that interview, and she talks about how it is important to keep the CARES Act funds for use by government and Guam departments and agencies. So once again, and remember, this is only for extraordinary expenses above and beyond budgeted items. So she can't use this to make payroll. She can only use this to make COVID payroll or COVID-type reimbursements or expenditures. And the CARES Act funds are not operating funds. So she's going to have to walk a very thin rope. And we saw, remember back in May when the senators finally got her to submit those earmarks, that list of earmarks? Remember that?
Yeah.
I went through it, and just in a few minutes, I identified $20 million worth of pork, and $900 laptop case, an $800 wireless mouse, $7,000 65-inch TV set, and my favorite, $35,000 for PSA announcements to let the people of Guam know that Guam Water Authority exists. So, I mean, that budget, and I didn't even go into it in detail when I pulled out $20 million worth of pork. So just imagine if somebody went through that proposed expenditure of $117 million with a fine-tooth comb and took out all the illegal activity like the $4 or $5 million to the Pacific Star Resort for executive parties and things like that. So I hope the legislature does what they say they're going to do, and they're going to stand up for the people of Guam this time. Because so far, a year and a half, we haven't seen very much of them standing up for the people of Guam. And with an election just around the corner, if there was ever time for the senators, for once in the 35th legislature, to do something for the people, this would be the time. 35,000 people unemployed, and you see how they're dragging out I know people that still haven't even got their stimulus money yet, let alone their unemployment, their PUA, so we need to do something for these people because these people are desperate, and desperate people are not going, no telling what desperate people will do, as we're seeing with the increase in crime.
So, Ken, what do you think of my modest proposal of coming up with the money for the matching, even if it means cutting into the budget for government of Guam payroll?
I think it's a good proposal, but I think there is, last I heard, there's $78 million still sitting in the account. Let's use that. Let's use that $78 million for the benefit of the people, as opposed to buying very expensive PPEs from people not licensed to sell PPEs. You know, let's do that. Let's use that money first, because that's the only way we're going to see that it goes to the people of Guam. Because when you hear that phrase that she's reserving it for use by departments and agencies, you know that's not going to benefit the people of Guam. I mean, we saw that with the new executive hires. I think in this budget, I think there's even still the proposal of $4 million to do another Hay study. You know, so the last thing we need to be doing at this point in time is doing the types of expenditures that do nothing for all the people of Guam. And then that's just my initial take on it. I would love for some other people to go through that $117 million earmarks, because, you know, when I saw it, I was very, very upset about it, because none of those earmarks did anything for the people of Guam. I mean, how does a $900 laptop case benefit the people of Guam? Really? Or $35,000 worth of public service announcements announcing Guam Water Authority has been around ever since.
Got to take a break, Ken. Thanks a lot for sharing. And once again, I think you're right on point. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont, or call 646-1463.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. They are open in Agana, ready for dine-in, takeout, and delivery services from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call them 479-2652 and get your Mezcla fix today.
Okay, so here we go. We got about 8 more minutes till that big halftime show at 1700 hours. I got a couple of phone calls. I got one housekeeping detail here. I've got to award the Blue Star to the Post, and it's been a while, and I guess I got out of the habit. But there you go, Guam Daily Post. Good editorial. Thank you very much. Yeah, you can hear the champagne corks popping at the Daily Post right now. That takes the Daily Post up to 212 blue stars compared to 57 for the Daily News. So let me see who's on the line. I've got Pete, and you told me I had 2 Real Joe Cruz.
Oh, no.
Only one?
Only one, sir.
Can you repeat that?
Yes, it's Pete, sir.
Okay, well let's have him repeat what he said yesterday. Okay.
Hi, Uncle Bob. How you doing?
Pretty good, Pete.
First of all, I didn't mean to be short. Last time we spoke, I just know that we were very limited on time. So, anyways, with regard to this matching scheme that the president has proposed and everybody's commentary on it, I say pump the brakes a little bit. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We don't even know whether that's what is going to be the deal. You know, I think it's the administration's way to try to push and prod the Congress to do something, you know, to get this thing going, because if they go into recess, or I think they already went into recess, you know, we're not going to see any relief, or the people are not going to see any relief. There's legal issues with the way the proposal is, and, you know, the governor came out and said, wait a minute, you know, this is only a couple of hours old when it first came out. Let's examine this and let's see where the dust settles a little bit, rather than make any commitments and make any changes. I think that would be the more prudent approach. What do you think?
Well, when President Trump came out with this idea, it was he was obviously moving pawn to king 4, and wondering what the people playing the black pieces were going to do with their end of the chessboard, and that's good. But you know, sometimes, Pete, looking at it as a soldier, sometimes you don't have the kind of intelligence that allows you to know exactly what the other side is going to do, so you have to have some contingencies. So a reasonable approach to that would have been, as far as I'm concerned, for the governor to say, there are some blanks to be filled in, but what I'm going to do is have my fiscal team round up that matching fund, if we can use it, because I want to put $400,000 a week in the hands of all of the people. That's what she should have done, and there should have been somebody over at the legislature who introduced a bill to appropriate the money, with the effectiveness of the appropriation to be triggered by the actual implementation of the executive order.
That's absolutely spot on, but I think I have a better idea.
A better idea than mine, Pete?
I say we sell GMH.
Hang on a second, Pete. I don't have the usual controls here. I can usually just push a button and hang up on somebody. I can't do that. Go ahead, Pete.
Sell GMH.
Not a bad idea.
And take that money and use it for the matching funds. But like I said, we're not there yet. You know, there's a lot of people that live their lives worrying about the what ifs and what could happen, and 90% or 95% of their worries never, you know, become a potential. It never comes to fruition. So a lot of times we need to take a step back and say, okay, well, you know, that's great. Let's think about it. But I like what you said about, you know, the prudent or the wiser words would have been, okay, we'll start getting ready for that possibility, instead of just saying, well, no, we're not going to do it.
Which is exactly what she said, Pete. So, you know, worrying and capitalizing on opportunities are two totally different things. And this is the opportunity to capitalize on two different things. But she said it'll be 30 to 50 million, and we don't have that in the general fund nor in the CARES Act. So that's going to be difficult, et cetera. So she's, you know, starting off right off the bat saying, it doesn't matter because I don't want to do it. Basically, what she said.
So I guess we're going to have to sell GMH.
No objection.
All right, Uncle Bob. I just wanted to throw some 2 cents in.
Okay, good to have you on the air again, Pete. Thanks for calling.
Let's stop.
Okay, so yeah, that was Pete, and once again, you know, that's kind of what leadership is about. Leadership is about looking out at, let's use some military terms here, looking out at the battlefield and knowing you're going to have to deal with a lot of uncertainties, but trying to make some estimates of what you're going to be dealing with and use the resources that you have to best deal with those uncertainties, instead of sitting back and saying, I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm not going to make any plans at all. Okay, let's take a break for that big halftime show, and we'll be back in about 7 minutes.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
They can print the bumper stickers now. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The announcement from Joe Biden on Tuesday.
Weeks of speculation ended with a text message. The Biden campaign supporter, Senator Kamala Harris, will be the Democratic vice presidential nominee. In a statement, former Vice President Joe Biden says he needs someone working beside him who is tough, smart, and ready to lead.
Fox's Jared Halpern, former President Obama saying his former vice president nailed it by choosing Senator Harris. But Fox's Jackie Heinrich reports
progressive voters may be disappointed with Biden's choice, despite support from Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Recently, Harris has been vocal about police reform, but during the primaries, she struggled to reconcile criticism. She avoided prosecuting killer cops as Attorney General. Plus, her health care plan didn't fully back Medicare for all, but kept private insurance. So while those points may not win over the far left, the Biden campaign hopes they'll undercut attacks from the Trump campaign.
President Trump's reaction?
She was my #1 draft pick. She was the one that I thought would be the best for us.
The president speaking exclusively with Fox's Hannity, a controversial congresswoman surviving an expensive primary challenge on Tuesday.
Squad member Congresswoman Ilhan Omar of Minnesota was facing tough competition from Anton Melton Mew, an attorney who spent a fortune on ads against her. But Omar managed a primary win. In Georgia, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a businesswoman who supported the far-right conspiracy theory QAnon, has won the Republican nomination for the 14th Congressional District. And a Republican candidate for Congress in Connecticut dropped out Tuesday just as voters were going to the polls. The GOP's Thomas Gilmer arrested Monday for an alleged attack on a girlfriend. A video of that attack was given to police by his primary opponent.
Fox's Jill Nato. America is listening to Fox News.
Mezcla Dos opened its doors in 2010 and has been proudly serving the people of Guam for 10 amazing years. In celebration of their 10th anniversary, Mezcla Dos will be offering 20% off on all burgers for a limited time only. Terms and conditions apply. Please call them at 646-6295 for more information, or visit them at their Upper Tumon location, right across Kmart. Thank you, Guam, for making Mezcla Dos one of your favorite hamburger spots.
Are you fed up with those long bank lines? Do you wish you had a bank who gave you faster service? Well, by enrolling in Bank Pacific's new mobile app, you don't even need to wait in line. But even if you do want to come down in person, we're more than happy to see your smiling face, as long as you have a mask. Because our service is so good, we don't believe in lines. Because for 66 years, we've been making sure you get the service you deserve. Because where others put branches, we place roots. And we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Colorado's Attorney General announcing there's an additional investigation related to the death of a black man in police custody last year in the Denver suburb of Aurora, Colorado.
State Attorney General Phil Weiser says the investigation has been looking at the patterns and practices of the Aurora Police Department. Elijah McClain died nearly 1 year ago after its officers apparently subdued him with a chokehold. McClain's family is suing, saying the officers and paramedics that gave him a high drug dosage to calm him should be held accountable. Attorney General Weiser says the patterns and practices probe is separate from any inquiry into McClain's death and will look at actions that may deprive people of their constitutional rights. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Oklahoma's Governor Kevin Stitt, the only governor in the country to come down with the coronavirus, says he has donated plasma to help other virus patients recover. Ohio's Governor Mike DeWine initially tested positive a week ago, but 3 subsequent tests have come back negative. So much has changed in the coronavirus pandemic, including the search for love.
New York professional matchmaker Samantha Daniels says people who are dating in person have to make some important decisions and have some decidedly unromantic conversations.
You both decide jointly that you're both wearing a mask. If there's some chemistry and you're getting together again, then maybe the next time you don't wear a mask, but you're in conversation after that about how you're being safe.
Daniels says many people are now dating online, a less satisfying but safer substitute for face-to-face dates. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
After a down day on Wall Street Tuesday, Asian stock markets are closing Wednesday mixed. Dow futures are trading about 160 points higher. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumont or call 646-1463.
Half a day. This is Michelle from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Top End Pest Control is who you call for all your pest control needs. Got a problem with roaches, ants, spiders, rodents, fleas, ticks, termites? No problem. They do it all. Top End Pest Control is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business and HubZone certified. Serving Guam since 2012. Call them today for a quote, 487-5657, or email topendpest@gmail.com. Check them out on Facebook at Top End Pest Control and give them a like. Top End Pest Control for all your pest control needs.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Okay, another great halftime show here that we've all become so accustomed to. We've learned to love and cherish those halftime shows, meaning that we are now in the second half of Tall Tales, probably smack dab in the middle of the week, since Wednesday is the middle of the week, which means that Real Joe Cruz and I have had half of our fun already. Because for us, fun is 5 days of Tall Tales. We got a half a week to go before we go into that kind of purgatory called a weekend.
Hang in there.
Yeah, we'll make it through, but it's always...
Stay positive.
It's always tough, but we'll make it, Real Joe Cruz.
Intestinal fortitude.
And guts, too. Yeah. Okay, well, it's time for the card, and this is what I've got on the card. I've got Let's see. Tina's up to 35 days now without detecting the kind of emergency that would require her to call the legislature into special session and suspend the public hearing requirement for bills coming before that special session. And of course, Janella is no longer on the card, nor is Luis Muñoz. So I go to the first item on the card for today, which is what I've been calling the sermon. And you'll recall I've had several of these. I had yesterday. The sermon was from a Brooklyn College education math professor who said that 2 + 2 = 4 reeks of white supremacist patriarchy. You remember that, right? And then I had one before that, Black Lives Matter versus sports. The article said, Black Lives Matter's queer founders have emasculated professional sports. And before that, I had the woke versus free speech. And today I've got why America is in real danger. And this is from Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager is a conservative commentator. He runs his own website. He's got something called Prager University. Good writer. And this is what he said. Americans have long been proud of the fact that, unlike European countries, Americans never went the route of totalitarianism as embodied in communism, fascism, and Nazism. And to understand why, it's necessary to understand why European countries embraced or fell victim to totalitarian doctrines. Until World War I, the primary beliefs that gave life meaning both on national and personal level were Judeo-Christian religions and patriotism, that is, love of one's nation. What gave people moral guidance were Judeo-Christian values. For most Europeans of the younger generation, World War I, with its seemingly senseless slaughter of millions, ended belief in Christianity and in many cases ended the people's faith in their nations. God was deemed absent, religion was deemed unnecessary, and national identity was seen as a cause of the war. That left a void that was almost immediately filled by communism, fascism, and Nazism. In Russia, World War I led directly to the Russian Revolution. Even before the war ended in 1917, the Tsar was overthrown, and later that year the Bolsheviks, that is Russian communists, took over. As awful as the Tsar was, there was far more freedom under him than there was in the Soviet Union until the fall of communism 72 years later, not to mention the murder of 20 to 40 million people under the Soviet regime. In Italy, the rise of fascism followed World War I. And in Germany, the Nazis came to power just 15 years after the end of the Great War. Nazism conquered most of European continent during World War II, and after Germany's defeat in 1945, the Soviets imposed communism over all of Eastern Europe. Though there were communists, communist fellow travelers, Nazi sympathizers, racists, and anti-Semites in the United States, neither communism nor fascism nor Nazism took root here. The primary reason was that, unlike Europeans, Americans did not lose their faith in Judeo-Christian religions and values or in America after World War I. America remained so religious that in 1954, the words, quote, under God, were inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance, recited daily in American schools. I remember this. I was in high school, Real Joe Cruz. I protested.
You did?
Yeah, not for any un-American or unpatriotic reasons, but I thought just memorizing the pledge was enough not to add 2 more words to the memorization task. Yeah. However, by 1950s, faith in America, Christianity, and what we call bourgeois middle-class values was largely limited to older Americans. The post-World War II baby boomer generation, that's 46 to 64. That's the folks that came after me, Real Joe Cruz. I am not a baby boomer. I never wanted to be a baby boomer. Yeah, by the late 1960s, vast numbers of baby boomers were attending demonstrations that were as much against America, routinely characterized as imperialist and colonialist aggressor country with an evil military, as they were against the war in Vietnam. It was not uncommon to see America spelled with 3 Ks, like, KKK, Ku Klux Klan, or America with a K, at protests and in graffiti. Dennis goes on to say, when I was in graduate school at Columbia University in the early 1970s, I was taught that men and women are not inherently different from one another, and that the Cold War was between 2 superpowers equally at fault, not between freedom and tyranny. Another generation has passed, and the post-Christian left-wing baby boomers have come close to achieving complete success. The mainstream print and electronic media, universities, high schools and elementary schools, the arts, and now sports have all been conquered by the left. Except for sports, from the beginning of the 20th century, they were almost all liberal, but now they are left. We now have the answer to the question, quote, what will happen to America if Americans lose faith in God and country as the Europeans did after World War I? What will happen to America when Christianity dies as it did in Europe after World War I? The way things look now, America may have its bout with some of the totalitarian doctrine, almost surely from the almost surely form of leftism. Liberty has never been a left-wing value. From Lenin on, wherever the left has come to power, it has suppressed liberty, beginning with free speech. Already, despite a Republican president and a Republican Senate, America has less free speech than at any time in its history. Exactly 1 year ago, I testified before a Senate subcommittee and wrote an op-ed piece for the Wall Street Journal about YouTube, placing more than 100 Prager University videos on its restricted list. And things have gotten much worse. Last week, PragerU was locked out of its Twitter account for retweeting a press conference of 8 physicians in Washington, D.C., which had already received 17 million views. And Facebook had just informed us that if we even cite studies that show possible benefits of hydroxychloroquine with zinc in the early stages of a patient with Wuhan virus, we will lose our Facebook account. Just by saying, hey, these guys say hexachlorophene works. Out you go. And then there's the cancel culture, which is merely a euphemism for left suppression of dissent. People are booted from internet platforms, fired from their jobs, or have their reputations smeared and their businesses ruined for differing with the left on anything. We are also undergoing a violent, as you were nonviolent, as of now, version of Mao Zedong's Cultural Revolution, with individuals forced to issue humiliating public recantations. How many times have we seen this? You know, people say things like, yeah, I agree, Black Lives Matter, but, you know, all lives matter too. And then the next day, oh, I'm sorry that I've inflicted so much pain on people of color. I shouldn't have said that. I washed my mouth out with soap. I'll never... Yeah. I mean, it just happens all the time. Individuals forced to issue humiliating public recantations of their beliefs and attend re-education sessions. Like D'Angelo, what's her first name? D'Angelo, I'll come to it in a minute. Another communist norm taking root in America is rewriting of the American past. You know, you got to get rid of things that don't conform with today's ideas of the way things should be. Gone with the Wind, historical movie about the Civil War, no good. You got to get rid of it. Aunt Jemima, on and on and on. Another communist norm taking root in America is the rewriting of American past. We are living a famous Soviet dissident joke, and here's how the Soviet dissident joke goes. In the Soviet Union, the future is known. It's the past that's always changing. On almost all social issues and many economic ones, the American left is more radical than the left in Europe. Europeans across the political spectrum are more wary of ideological fanaticism because of the vast scale of death and suffering that resulted from communism, fascism, and Nazism. One might say that Europe was inoculated against fanaticism. Europeans are more preoccupied with working less, traveling more, and being taken care of than with their ideological movements. But America, which has not suffered under fanatical, irrational, liberty-depriving ideologies, has not been inoculated. Without such vaccination, what replaced Christianity in Europe may well do the same in America. And of course, we're seeing it on TV every night where the public officials in Portland just roll over and say, go for it, guys. Do what you want to do. I'm going to get to that a little later on in the card. So that's today's kind of homily, where our country is going, where the left is taking our country, and we are a long way towards being there. Okay, let's get on the card here. I don't have to spend any more time with Tina. The other day I talked about Lulan Guerrero's admission that Guam is American soil. Tano Americano. And I'm surprised that there, hasn't been a backlash from the separatists who would require Lou to do just exactly what Prager's op-ed did, require Lou to come out and say, I'm so sorry that I said that Guam was American soil, the Chamorro here, on and on and on. Okay, so before I go any further in the card here, I detect by looking at my decoder app on my iPhone that the most dangerous man in the room is on the line. Let me talk to R. Carl, Real Joe Cruz. So what dangerous undertaking are you involved with today, R. Carl? What suspense and intrigue?
I was trying to remember where I'd heard that song from, and then I just remembered just now, yeah, that's right, it's Mission Impossible.
Uh-huh.
I thought that sounded vaguely familiar. I haven't heard it in quite a while.
It's your theme song, R. Carl. The most dangerous man in the room, the trench coat, the snap brim hat, the briefcase, which We don't know what's inside, but we expect it's all kinds of trick spy gear.
Well, one of my main tools in my most dangerous man tool belt is curiosity. And I've often wondered, how did we get to this point? It's just like strange, just stuff I never thought I'd live to see in my entire life. And I'm always curious about what drives this leftist movement, what we're seeing in the streets. Some of them are, rioting for months, and so I've wondered about that. I've tried to read a bit and observe and think about it.
Well, here it is, Carl. After World War I, there had been a fairly large number of communists in Europe before World War I, Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, etc., and a lot of relatively intelligent people, the so-called intelligentsia, had really studied up on Marxism and were really ready for a Marxist revolution. And they thought that what would happen would be the workers of the industrialized countries would rise up against their bourgeoisie masters and take over and establish communist, not even states. The state would wither away. But they found out after World War I that German workers and French workers, no problem killing one another. So the geniuses of the Frankfurt School decided that instead of a violent workers' revolt, what they would have to do was establish a cultural revolt. And they do that by hollowing out the institutions of European civilization, primarily the universities and the schools, etc. A guy named Antonio Gramsci came along in 1930 and really fleshed that out and really was the theorist for identity politics. And he also is the one that invented critical race theory. Critical race theory means that nothing that happens in a society happens happenstance, so to speak. There's always a racial dimension to everything that happens, and it's always the oppressors oppressing the oppressed for their own benefit, the bourgeoisie oppressing the workers for their own benefit. So the idea was to work with the various identity groups, racial, sexual, perversial, whatever, and set them against the oppressors who turn out to be white Europeans. And the Frankfurt School basically disbanded in 1933. It so happened that they were Jews, except for one of them. So when Hitler came to power in Germany, they departed from Frankfurt. Columbia University was looking for a group of researchers to do social research. So they went to Columbia University and they gradually fanned out across the country, and they took that identity politics Gramsci idea with them and implanted it in the various campuses. And then, as Dennis Prager said, when the baby boomers came along, they were pretty easy pickings for these folks. One of the members of the Frankfurt School was named Herbert Marcuse, who was, if you don't remember this, but was a pretty well-known name back in the 60s when people were burning their draft cards and all that kind of stuff. So one of the sayings back in those days was Marx, Mao, and Marcuse. So they really got it rolling in the 1960s and demonstrated that, a mob could take over a college. And if you could take over a college, what else could you take over? So they kind of calmed down until the end of the Soviet Union in 1992, and then they came back with a vengeance. And by that time, the cultural Marxists, the neo-Marxists, very firmly implanted in American universities They'd had the opportunity to pass this dogma on to a lot of people who are now running corporations and other things. Everybody didn't sign up for it. Everybody didn't drink the Kool-Aid. There were a lot of useful idiots that came along just because it seemed to be the right thing to do. And that's how we got here. That's how we got to where we are now, Carl, where lawyers are throwing Molotov cocktails into police cars.
Yeah, Drive-Through Jack mentioned a book he was reading, and it was on the way when he mentioned it, but I've got it. It's Dinesh D'Souza's United States of Socialism, and he does a good job of tying things together. I'm not quite halfway through, but it's really, he does a very good job, and he mentions about Gramsci, about especially Marcuse, and he goes into some detail about how they've what they did to find a replacement proletariat, the working class.
Mm-hmm.
The original working class, it didn't work out so well. The common workers weren't really interested in starting a bloody uprising when they were moving slowly up the economic ladder. So that did not work out well. But yeah, Marcuse took Gramsci's idea of hegemony and advanced that, with the what do you call these identity groups, and he was really idolized during the 60s. One thing I wanted to comment about, which is the reason why I called, is that it's always curious to me why the right just seems to have somewhat missed the boat and have passively given over our universities and our schools to the left, and the left just has been how would you say, they've been relentless in their pursuit. And I've wondered why, what drives this, and I think it really is a kind of a sort of a religious fervor. They have this vision of a social justice utopia that and they have their priesthood, the professors, the leftist professors, they have their orthodoxy, the writings of people like Marcuse and Gramsci, and they have their cathedrals, the universities, they've got their missionaries, people who graduate and have been indoctrinated, and they go into journalism and teaching and the media and spread this doctrine, this orthodoxy all across America. So I find that it's very much a kind of a religious attitude, a religious fanaticism. If you try and speak in opposition to this orthodoxy, I mean, it's very much a religious reaction. That you're one of the heretics. You have to be shouted down, and you have to be stopped, from declaring anything that isn't what they see as truth. Whereas people on the right have generally been raising families and starting businesses and building stuff and doing things, and they're more on the defensive. They've pretty much already gotten what they want, personal freedom and some economic freedom. So they're on the defensive, whereas the left, they're on the march, that long march through the institutions.
If only the people on the right were on the defensive, Carl.
Yeah.
So much of it is the one about the boiling the frog. You just keep increasing the heat of the water gradually, and the frog doesn't know that he's going to be boiled to death. And people ought to be seeing these things going on around them, but they don't notice, or they don't want to notice. They don't want to see things that are unpleasant. And I've talked to, a fair number of intelligent people, and I've tried to explain this whole thing, just as I explained here, starting out with the Frankfurt School and taking it up to where we are right now. And a typical reaction is this: I never heard about that. Parenthesis, if I never heard about it, I don't think it's true. You know what I mean? You know how that works, how people's minds work in that regard. Oh, I never heard about that. When all you have to do is turn on your TV set and catch the curiosity virus that makes our Carl so dangerous, and do just a little bit of reading, and it's all right there. It's very plain and very easy to see. But people are just too. It's kind of like the first caller today who, got caught up in this quarantine mess and said to the other folks, "Come on, let's do something about it." Nobody wanted to do anything about it. And it's kind of like a bunch of doctors going down on one knee down at Skinner Plaza, white coats for Black Lives Matter, not realizing who they've signed up with.
Yeah, sadly, I think it takes the threat of having something taken away. Like a lot of Democrats are shocked at what they're seeing in the cities, in the major cities, this ongoing riots and burning of buildings and damaging and burning of federal buildings. So it's a wake-up call for a certain number of people, and unfortunately sometimes that needs to happen. The people in Hong Kong, you didn't see those protests, those mass protests, until it became apparent that there were actually concrete steps being taken to destroy their freedoms. And unfortunately, by then, the snake had wrapped itself around their government, and it was in the process of eating them. So it's sad. I hope we wake up in time. Well, enough people wake up in time to do something, because I think we're very comfortable. A lot of us have a decent lifestyle. We've got families. We've got a job.
That's Seattle and Portland. It hasn't happened to me yet. So yeah, I know what you're saying. What time's the football game start?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, Bob. Well, I hear the music in the background. Thanks for allowing me to chime in. I appreciate it.
Okay, Carl. See you later. God knows what a dangerous mission he's off onto now.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, launch! That's just what we did with our new state-of-the-art mobile banking app as we celebrate 66 years of serving our island communities. It's loaded with a ton of new user-friendly features, including remote deposit capture. It's another way of saying you don't have to come to the bank to go to the bank. And if you want to come to the bank, we're happy to see your smiling face as long as you're wearing a mask. And we don't have long lines. Bank Pacific grows but branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Doing real estate since 1978. 14 years here on Guam. Call Maria Miller from Horizon Properties at 777-7792.
Seventh inning stretch, Wrigley Field in Chicago, and then right back here to Tall Tales. And I have a question or a request of the legendary Real Joe Cruz. Could you read Maria Miller's phone number again, Real Joe Cruz?
Maria Miller?
Yeah, from the commercial that you just had there.
777-7792.
Can you read it the way you read it when you read the commercial?
777-7792.
You did it so much better when you did the commercial.
I'm organic, sir.
Yeah.
You're going to get it different every time.
Okay, well, I wasn't quick enough because I was going to compliment you. I was going to say, you know, Real Joe Cruz, the way you read that phone number, I could give you my grandma's recipe for oatmeal cookies, and you could read it on the air, and it would be exciting.
Oh, that sounds sweet, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, back to the card. So the next item on the card is DFS versus the airport. And the Supreme Court ruled on on this case, sent out its decision on this case yesterday. DFS Guam LP versus the AB Wampat International Airport. It's a 78-page decision. And I've glanced through it, and I'm not quite sure who won what and who lost what. It's going to take me a couple of days to analyze it, but I will analyze it and bring it back here and let you know whatever it is that's important that came out of this case. You remember this case and another case, DFS versus Lotte, began after DFS lost the contract for the airport. You know, from the time that we built our airport, our latest airport, DFS had the contract to run the duty-free shop, and it went on for years and years and years. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, the contract went to Lotte instead of DFS, and it's probably that the legal fees arising from that have probably sent several lawyers' kids to Ivy League colleges because awful lot of expensive legal bills involved. And this is the latest decision to come out of the Guam Supreme Court, DFS versus the airport. I will have more on this for you later on. Next item on the card, this kind of ties into what the most dangerous man in the room and I were talking about. This item is BLM versus Lori Lightfoot. And this comes from an article in Newsmax entitled Black Lives Matter Defends Chicago Looting as Reparations. A Black Lives Matter organizer in Chicago is defending the violence that caused $60 million in damage and injured 13 police officers on Sunday, characterizing looting as, quote, reparations. Ariel Atkins. Well, we have an Atkins that posts a lot here. Probably no relation. Ariel Atkins, a BLM organizer, according to Chicago NBC network affiliate WMAQ, justified the riot in the Chicago downtown business district during a Monday rally at police station in the, quote, South Loop, where protesters claim more than 100 people arrested in Sunday's violence were being held. I don't care if someone decides to loot Gucci or Macy's or a Nike store because that makes sure that the person eats, Atkins told WMAQ. That makes sure the person has clothes. That's reparations. Anything they wanted to take, they can take it because these businesses have insurance. Now, this is a novel theory of commerce. So if we were to adopt that theory here, we could go over to Micronesia Mall and just go into Macy's and take whatever we wanted. Macy's has got insurance. We'll just call it reparations. The rioting occurred after word spread that police had shot a 20-year-old man on the south side of the city. One post on Facebook erroneously claimed that police had shot and killed a 15-year-old boy. Police were called to the Inglewood neighborhood at about 2:30 p.m. local time for a report of a man with a gun, located the suspect, and began a pursuit on foot according to Chicago Fox Network affiliate WFLD. During the foot pursuit, the offender turned and fired shots at the officers. Deputy Chief DeLonda Talley. The officers then returned, discharging their weapon. The suspect, Latrell Allen, 20, was charged with attempted murder Monday and was transported to the University of Chicago Hospital. However, calls to descend upon the Central Business District and its upscale Magnificent Mile shopping area drew hundreds in the evening and early Monday, with rioting and looting as a result, smashing windows and also sparking clashes with police. This was not an organized protest. Rather, this was an incident of pure criminality, Police Superintendent David Brown said. This was an act of violence against our police officers and against our city. A Black Lives Matter statement obtained by the Chicago Sun-Times also appeared to justify the destruction. Quote, when protesters attack high-end retail stores that are owned by the wealthy and service the wealthy, that is not, quote, our city and has never been meant for us, the statement read in part. A sign at Monday's rally displayed by protesters read, our futures have been looted from us. Loot back. In its statement, Black Lives Matter also called for the Chicago police to be abolished. Now, this looting would be a whole lot easier if there weren't any cops. The mayor has clearly not learned anything since May, and she would be wise to understand that the people will keep rising up until the Chicago Police Department is abolished and our black communities are fully invested in, the statement said. So I don't know how, excuse me, how closely our international radio listening audience has been following Chicago and what's going on there on television, but Lori Lightfoot is the new mayor of Chicago. She started out as one of these Black Lives Matter, you know. I'm really with the Black Lives Matter folks. And she tolerated some rioting and some looting and didn't take any action, you know. It's kind of like, well, you know, they'll get over it. And the TV coverage of what went on Sunday was amazing. We used to see people who would break into a store and come running out with a large color TV set and running as fast as they could. Not in Chicago. People would pull their cars right up on the sidewalk, saunter into a store, and load up their cars. One of the videos even showed a U-Haul rent-a-trailer that the looters had brought down so they wouldn't have so much to carry in their cars. And the police department's position is, when the last time we rounded up a group of rioters and looters, the state's attorney for Cook County, a certain Kit Fox, did not prosecute more than 90% of the people that had been arrested. Most of them were just released to go out and continue looting. So when people get the idea that there are no consequences to doing the wrong thing, what's to stop them? If going back to the Dennis Prager op-ed piece, you know, apparently the idea of people having a conscience, you know, that's so 1950s that, you know, nowadays, given the Black Lives Matter movement and the whole neo-Marxist implantation of identity politics in people's heads, the idea of having that little invisible voice in your head saying, don't do this, it's wrong. Even if you can get away with it, you shouldn't do it because it's wrong. That's what your conscience is. So that was nowhere to be seen in Chicago on Sunday night as people just stocked up $60 million worth of damage, reparations, etc. So Lightfoot and a lot of other people have realized that once you let and not the fox, but once you let the bear into the chicken coop, he's not gonna all of a sudden decide that he's gonna leave the chicken coop and go down to Kentucky Fried and pay for his chicken anymore. He's just gonna go in there and eat those chickens. And that's where we are with so many cities. Louisville, Chicago, Seattle, that ceded 7 blocks of the city to the Chaz. Portland, where the rioting has been going on for like 60 days, when Trump, the president, sent in federal agents to protect the United States District Courthouse, which is certainly something that we would expect a president to do. The city, the mayor and the governor said the reason for all the rioting is because Trump sent in the shock troops. So after they made a deal with the Portland police that the Portland police would guard the courthouse and the federal officers left, the rioting got worse. So this is not going to go away. We have an element in the country that's going to keep doing this and attempt to kind of blackmail us. You know, either you do what we want you to do or we're going to ruin your cities. And they've branched out of the cities. They've gone into Beverly Hills in California. They've gone into some of the tonier parts of some of the cities. And it's just a matter of time before the United States is going to be a very difficult place to live. Some of the interesting things that have happened, talking with some of the people that I know that have communications with folks in the States, rentals for New York City, for Manhattan apartments, have really gone down. Because everybody who can get out of Manhattan or Dodge is getting out. And the same thing is happening in Atlanta and Seattle and in Portland. People who can pack up and leave are going. Okay, so we're getting up here to the home stretch.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Woo-wee! Just take a gander at them tender and juicy fall-off-the-bone St. Louis ribs. Heavens to Betsy! What is their secret? It's bursting with so much flavor, I can eat them all day long. Come see for yourself, y'all. These fine slabs of hunky-dory, mouth-watering ribs are only available at Circle K. Circle K. Take it easy.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific. Banking on the Pacific for 66 years.
Well, here we are, the home stretch on Tall Tales. We just left Churchill Downs. We're heading down the home stretch. And I was chatting on the phone a little while ago with the most dangerous man the most dangerous man in the room, R. Carl. And he referenced a certain drive-through Jack. So I don't know. It could very well be that R. Carl has some secret communications devices in his briefcase that are so high-tech and so top secret that we don't know about it. But in any case, Drive-Through Jack is on the line. So let me talk to Drive-Through Jack.
Good afternoon or good evening, Bob. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jack.
Yeah, I'm just jumping in the car right now, getting ready to go home. No drive-through for me today. I was really blessed today. I was given 3 pounds of smoked pork, vacuum sealed. Yeah, I had it this weekend. I mentioned to the host of the party, the peaceful protest leader, the meat was absolutely delicious. And, I commented and I said it was really great. So today I came in and he just came up to me just right after work and gave me about 3 pounds of vacuum sealed smoked pork. And I'm so very grateful. He knows I have a large family. And so I'm very grateful to him. I don't want to mention his name because I'll ask him first for permission. But if he's listening, I'm really grateful. But
well, if he's a friend of yours, Jack, he's got to be listening to Tall Tales.
Well, he's going into work, so as I'm leaving, he's going in. So
right.
I don't know if So, anyways, I just wanted to, I was reading the paper about whether or not the Gov Guam will be able to divvy up their end for the next pandemic relief, and I think the best way to explain economics here in Guam is that, we are very much family oriented. And the rule of thumb when it comes to Gov Guam, if you can't keep it in the budget, keep it in the family. And in this case, the family is Gov Guam. And it's, you could look at it historically when this pandemic broke out. What's the first thing they did? They made sure that government employees were compensated. Then it made sure that the citizens were fined or tried to pass a law to make sure that everybody else got fined for not paying attention or adhering to the rules of the guidelines of the pandemic, which I must say that when I first read the story about the governor catching the Wuhan virus, I was sad because she is our leader. But at the same time, I was sort of confused because when it came out in the paper, it didn't mention what the symptoms were. And it's amazing because if you look back 3 months ago, the symptoms have changed or morphed or added. It used to be you had a fever or a cough or something like that, didn't feel well. Now it's a loss of taste, some places loss of hair, loss of hearing. The list can go, they just keep adding to the list. And, it's, I just, when you think about how this government, our local government, is responding to this outbreak and to this crisis, and you look at what's happening in the Communist Party of China, how they're treating their citizens, how they're treating the divisions of labor over there, how they're treating their private sectors, how they're arresting people from the free press and putting them in jail. And then you look at over here in America and you look at here in Guam, it's the control of the social media, it's the control of the press. And the more liberal the press it is, the better coverage that you get as a Democrat. And when you tally up to today how much negative press President Trump has gotten since he's taken office, it's just really I don't know how he survives or how the conservative party manages to go through these things. But hopefully this election will prove us to be in the right side of the argument. And it's going to boil down to this. But the way that the elections are going on through the other states, a lot of the progressive winners, a lot of the progressive candidates have won their elections against solid Democratic Party leaders and party incumbents since 20 years ago. So I'm not of fear of the Democratic Party. I'm just not sure if our message as conservatives is getting out there. And I pray for the governor. I hope she recovers well. I pray for her family, as they do for all all the people of Guam. I know we have our political differences, but there is a right and wrong, like you said. There was a time when we knew the difference between the Hatfields and the McCoys, and to this day, when you ask about it, it's like, oh, they're all the same thing. They're all white, or some excuse like that. But there is some truth to our issues and our arguments, and we've never swayed away from it. Whether it has to be about life, whether it has to be about liberty, or even property. And I have to mention that the problem of New York City is really property speculation. So when you go rent like a shop or a corner or a slot in a building in New York City, you're not renting it from an individual. You're renting it from a multinational corporation who has invested money, time, and stuff like that and speculated on the return of that slot. So New York City and these big cities where there's a lot of speculation on real estate, they're taking a big hit.
Hey, Jack.
And it's not, yeah.
Sorry, but we're right up there against the end.
All
of
right, Bob. So
Good.
Listen, have a great evening.
Good talking to you, Jack.